left in the tank and some of the older veterans. Are they able? Do you think they'll be able to put something together so they can make a run? I know they added Aldridge, but can those old dogs be able to put something together to make a run at the title?
This is an interesting question, Manu, because he was able to kind of take it a little easy last year just because they had so many pieces off the bench. They had Corey Joseph, you had Marco Bellinelli. You had a ton of guys that could just come in and fill in that role. So Manu wasn't asked to give his 15 points a game anymore. But this year, it's a little bit different. They have a very young bench outside of Patty Mills and Manu and Boris Diaw and David West. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a young guy, second year, Kyle Anderson. He was the MVP of the summer league, but still in the NBA. He looks a little bit too slow for the NBA game. They picked up a guy from the D League last year, Jonathan Simmons. They have Jimmer Fredette, who's coming in for camp, and then one of their EuroLeague guys, Deshaun Thomas. So Manu might actually be asked to have more of a burden and more of a responsibility this year as opposed to the last 2 years, just because that bench is kind of unknown. But of course, Pop's an experiment with them. If he figures out that he has something working, a lot of the young guys on the bench, then of course he might be able to manage Manu's minutes a little bit better. But it's going to be interesting to see what Manu, just because I think they're going to ask a little bit more from him this coming season than in the past.
Good thoughts. And speaking of guys that are not on the roster anymore, you look at the Spurs trade Thiago Splitter, ironically to a Pop disciple. It might butt holes down in Atlanta. Two questions. Number one, how much is the trade of Splitter going to affect the Spurs? Because Splitter was that defensive presence for Tim Duncan. And two, today one of the big stories today was the Spurs re-signing Jacques Vaughn back to the coaching staff. The Spurs have been like the New England Patriots of coaching. Any guy who's been on that that coaching tree somehow finds an NBA job. So two questions on this one. We'll take the first part of Splitter. How much of an impact is Thiago Splitter going to be on the team? And in your opinion, who is next on the Spurs coaching tree?
The Splitter thing, the Splitter one's a big one just because, like you said, defensively, he was always their guy. The good thing, though, is that the league's shifting toward that small ball era we saw with the Golden State Warriors. But, when they play the Memphis Grizzlies and some of the bigger teams, the Houston Rockets with Dwight, you're gonna see the absence of Splitter not being there. And even Aaron Baines, to a credit, he was the guy who always took the big guys as well as Splitter. So it's gonna put more of a burden on Tim Duncan, I think. When LaMarcus and him are on the floor, he's gonna have to play the five more often. They did bring in a big Serbian guy. He's 27 years old, named Boban Marjanovic. He's going to be really rusty, but, just to eat up some fouls, you can still throw him in there. But, yeah, Splitter's definitely going to be missed, but I think that you kind of had to take that minus with all of the positives that LaMarcus is going to give you. And just for a few spot minutes, LaMarcus, like in a small ball lineup with Kawhi at the 4 and LaMarcus at 5, LaMarcus is still going to have to play some 5. And, I just think that their overall offensive power that they're going to have is going to help them in the separation of keeping against those defensive lineups as far as having to be pinpoint on point, and also, as I said, the league's just gotten a lot smaller overall, and just a lot quicker. So this new team is very versatile, and you're not going to see a lot of the Memphis teams, a lot of the Rockets teams that are just those two big guys in the paint. And then on the second question about the bench, yes, they brought Jacques Vaughn back today. I mean, if you had asked me right now who I think is the next top guy take over his spot on the bench, I would say it's Ime Udoka. He's a guy who was a player in the system. He's been under Pop for a long time, but really at this time, Ime Udoka, Becky Hammond, she just won the Spurs Summer League championship. I mean, she won the championship of the Summer League. Even a guy like Ettore Messina, who's considered almost like a legend in overseas in the EuroLeague. Mm-hmm. Any of these people can easily just get a job if somebody gets fired during the season. If in the next 2 to 3 summers there's some vacancies, even Jacques Vaughn. He might be a guy who might be available for that Pop spot when he eventually retires. So right now, I would say it's Ime Udoka looks like the favorite, but like I said, a team could easily scoop up Udoka as well.
Well, Paul, before we let you out of here, we play a game called 3-Point Play. Normally, it's 3 questions from each of the 3 hosts of the show, but of course, with Paul being out tonight, it is going to be the pick and roll. So, Mark, lead off tonight.
All right, I'm still going to stay with the Spurs, for a moment. We were just talking about Tony Parker. He's getting a little older. He can't really break down guys like he used to. Will Pop use a guy that y'all acquired, Ray McCallum Jr. Fast, quick, got him from the Kings. If he can learn the system, do you see him, getting some minutes and being able to spell Parker, and be able to, go ahead and handle some business there?
I definitely think so. That's actually that reference is actually something that R.C. Buford, the general manager, spoke of this past offseason when they acquired McCallum. is that he kind of knows that, because, that's kind of where they want him to play that Corey Joseph role, where he's kind of a guy who can manage the team for a few games that Tony needs to sit out, or if Tony or Patty Mills gets hurt. So he's kind of that insurance guy, but also, if he's playing well, he's going to get some of those minutes. Now, he probably won't get the playoff minutes unless, somebody's hurt, but, as far as the season goes, he's going to get, a good 20, 25 games of maybe being the starter, and Patty coming off the bench if Tony's out, whether for rest or if he gets hurt. Just looking at the signs of Tony not, being able to play a whole season in the last 3 years, it's going to be very likely that McCallum's going to get some decent minutes here coming up, and he's an interesting player. He's a little bit more offensively capable than Corey Joseph was, but defensively he's not where Corey was. So it's almost like a flip flop of what they are.
Well, I'm going to take my question a little bit different since we talk Spurs. Let's talk about who is a bigger threat to stop San Antonio from getting, another championship. In your opinion, 30 seconds, is it Oklahoma City or is it the defending champion Golden State Warriors?
Right now, I'd still have to say the Warriors, just because, they're the team. You saw what they did, and this is like their first year together as that whole group with the pieces they had running that small ball type of play. They acquired Jason Thompson from the Kings to get a little bit bigger. They're just going to get better, with that bringing most of that squad back. And OKC, they're really great talent, but there's still a lot of unknowns. I still don't, if Deion Waiters is playing crunch minutes in the playoffs, I don't trust that. And then, they got a new coach in Billy Donovan. Of course, if Russell and Kevin can stay healthy, they're going to be monsters. But then, it's a whole new team with, Cantor never got to play with Durant. There was a lot of names, DJ Augustine, all those guys that they acquired last season. They have a lot of talent, but there's something that's kind of still an unknown that we don't know about, kind of just like San Antonio. We don't know what they're like. So I still think the Warriors, what they are. If they can just still stay healthy and kind of keep that chemistry together and nobody gets out of that role, their roles, I think they're just going to get a little bit better than they were. So I still think Golden State's the team to beat.
Well, Paul Garcia, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight, talking Spurs, because like you said, it's been the biggest news in the offseason, the biggest teams made the most impact. So how can everybody follow you? What do you got coming up, and where can they reach you on social media?
Okay, Paul Garcia, so I write for ProjectSpurs.com. You can reach me on social media. I mainly just use Twitter. At Paul Garcia PS, all together in one line. And then, we just, season previews are coming up over our website. Training camp starts next Monday for San Antonio. I'll be at the AT&T Center. I live here in town, so I cover all the games, start doing all the preseason games, all the regular season games. And so, it's going to be a fun year. It looks very energetic down here in San Antonio right now.
Great to have you on the show, Paul. We got to do this again probably when the season starts or sometime after that. And tell the Coyote I said hello.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
We're going to take a quick break here on Full Court Press Radio, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the Detroit Pistons with Ari Wagner, and I know we have a contest coming up, Mark, NBA 2K, NBA Live 16, and we got to figure out how to give this away. So right back on Full Court Press Radio, sponsored by SOFOELLC. We'll be right back in a couple minutes.
Slow traffic eastbound I-4 between Michigan Street and State Road 434. An accident in this area causing these delays. Also westbound I-4 is slow from Lake Mary Boulevard to State Road 434, and then from Colonial Drive to about the 408. You want to look out for delays also northbound along the 417 from Colonial Drive to about Red Bug Lake Road. If you see traffic problems, call the Safe Touch Security Tip Line, 866-676-8477. From the Traffic Center, I'm Catherine Davis.
Hey fans, this is Eric Kohler, stadium voice of UCF football. We invite you to tune in to EK Sports every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. as we feature the preferred picks of the week, insured by our good friends at Preferred Benefits Consultants, where it's always fun to pick those games of the week, but never a time to gamble with your health care. Find a Preferred Benefits Consultant at OrlandoHealthExchange.com. That's the letter X, OrlandoHealthExchange.com, and start saving today.
Are you looking for your dream home? Or are you looking to move out of your current home and find the home to start the next chapter of your life? Look no further. Jim Fouquet with Century 21 Rue Realty is your go-to guy to help you with all your needs. Specializing in West Orange County, Lake County, and Ocoee, his goal is to take care of you from the beginning to the end and is not satisfied until the job is complete. Stop by 401 West Colonial Drive, Suite 7, or give him a call, 321-945-6832. Jim Fouquet with Century 21 Rue Realty.
iHeartRadio connects you to your favorite artists in our app.
The iHeartRadio app.
iHeartRadio rocks! In concert.
Right here on iHeartRadio Music Awards.
And now on Snapchat. Each day, explore our iHeartRadio Discover channel on Snapchat to get close to your favorite musicians. Personal moments, backstage access, and exclusive conversations with the biggest names in music.
iHeart, are you ready?
The iHeartRadio Discover channel on Snapchat.
iHeartRadio.
No one gets you closer.
Looking to expand your reach and following in all platforms of media? Need a jumpstart in expanding your brand to all markets across the world? SOFO is here for you. SOFO means something for everyone, and they help expand your business through all platforms of media. Need to grow on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram? Their experienced team expands your brand and puts your business in places you would have never been before. Call SOFO at 407-607-9862 or follow SOFO LLC on Instagram and Twitter.
What's your toughest temptation? Is it to lose your cool when somebody ticks you off, or to cheat on a test or expense reports? Is it the temptation to overeat when you're under stress, or maybe it's lust or pornography? Could it be booze, drugs, or other addictive behavior? We're surrounded with temptation every day. How often do we indirectly blame God for our temptations? For instance, if you struggle with obesity and say, well, it's just how God made me, the truth is we are the major source of our temptation to sin. We all have a sinful nature that's as old as Adam and Eve. But here's the good part. We have a way to resist. Jesus taught us to pray for God's strength in the face of temptation. And then just say no and mean it. We will fail sometimes. Of course we will. When you do, ask God to forgive you, which He will through Christ. Then ask for strength to never do that again. This is Brian Wright, speaking right from my heart.
Visit rightfromtheheart.org.
When interest rates rise, hit the reset button. That's right. Reset your rate with Axiom Bank's flexible 12-month CD. Axiom Bank's flexible 12-month CD offers a highly competitive rate and the option to reset your rate. If their posted rates go up during your CD term, you can reset your CD to the new higher rate. Some restrictions apply. For more information or to open an online account, visit AxiomBanking.com. That's AxiomBanking.com. Member FDIC.
Welcome to Late Night Parents. I'm your host, Ted Hicks. We have a weekly podcast where we sit down and talk with game changers in the sports, technology, education fields. We even do product reviews and giveaways. Why, you ask? Because we're all parents. So if you're ready for an up-close and personal look, then you can check out our podcast. New episodes are available every Thursday. Catch us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. That's Late Night Parents. The site is latenightparents.com.
We are Orlando's sports leader. 740 The Game.
We are back on Full Court Press Radio, sponsored by SOFO LLC. 407-916-8255 is the number here in Orlando. If you're calling nationwide, 800-729-8255. I'm your host, Danny Thompson, kicking it tonight with my main man, Mark Johnson, the NBA draft expert, as well as social media manager of Full Court Press Radio. Mark, what's up, man?
I'm good, and like I said, a lot of things to get into. We're about to talk some Pistons, some Harrison Barnes later on, Anthony Bennett. Definitely some topics that make you scratch your head a little bit. So, but it's great. And we got the contest. Giving away NBA 2K and NBA Live. So a lot of good things on deck.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a couple minutes. But before we go any further, you just mentioned the Detroit Pistons. Our next guest is the founder and creator of Full Court Press online, which is not us, but kind of like our brother, sister, family member. Our good friend Ari Wagner is on the line. Ari, how you doing?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. Good evening. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. For those who know, Ari runs a site called Full Court Free Press, which is not Full Court Press, but Full Court Free Press. Like I said, brother, sister to us. But Ari was covering the Pistons at a big event last week and got a chance to talk to Stan Van Gundy. Ari, since you cover the Pistons on a regular basis and, you talk to Stan, what did you get from him when you had the opportunity to speak with him last week?
So the main thing I got from talking to Coach Van Gundy was a feeling of excitement within the Detroit locker room, which is something very different for the Pistons fan base of late. In the past,